Urban Notes Podcast, where real people tell real stories through urban lifestyles and cultures.
Welcome to On the Block with Rasta, with your host, Rasta Round, with a special guest, no other than Dr. Andrew Cory Greene from H.O.L.L.A Link All Together. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Mr. Andrew Cory Greene. How you doing, Mr. Greene?
I'm doing well, man. Peace. Anking my eye, Black Power, Resurrection. Shout out to you for starting this podcast, and I'm looking forward to share with your audience and to kick it with you.
Most definitely, definitely. So before we get this conversation started, we got a few things we gotta, let the audience know about you, right? So I want to know what's your name, where you from, what's the correct gender pronouns, and how you practice healing.
Yep. My name is Cory Greene. Um, I am I'm from the cosmos, from the universe, but my family origins start in Africa, and we have a lot of history in Mississippi, the
Mm,
Delta, Mississippi to Jackson, Mississippi, and then our family running from the war, running from um, white supremacist African colonization and enslavement, particularly in the context of the United States of America. And in Mississippi, we started running up north. We started running to Chicago. We started running to New York. We started running to North Carolina. And some of us are in Virginia. And I practice healing by remembering my family, remembering the war and how my family had to fight the war, had to flee from the war. And that's a deep process of studying the world, studying myself, um, being honest with myself, and figuring out how to be honest with myself so that I can make the right moves in my own personal revolution, my own personal transformation. That's going to help me and my family fight the war. So
mm.
healing is a spiritual, political, relational um, um, energy, and there's so many different ways to express healing and express that energy when it comes to fighting the war and loving your family.
Right, definitely, definitely. Definitely, that's most definitely when you're fighting a war, when it's fighting white supremacy, you need all the energies from the ancestors, past, present, and future, just to keep yourself alive in this fight. Most definitely. So yeah, Dr. Green. So we talk about inheritance ignorance a lot, right? We hear inheritance trauma and oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective of fields of area of fields, what is healing from inheritance ignorance really means to you?
Do you want to give some framing to ignorance?
It means as in like not really saying ignorance, but more so saying the trauma that we got from it, the lessons that we haven't learned from it, the ignorance of like
Mm.
we're not engaged in certain things that we're supposed to engage with. Like we're quick to
Got
knock
you.
something off. So what are something what do you learn from when you just hearing that word? What comes to your mind?
Well, I think we all are in using that kind of that understanding. We all are in, and when I say all, I mean not just black people. I mean all of humanity, really. The
Right,
last 500 to 5,000 years, we all have experienced immense trauma that has reshaped society. We often talk about patriarchy and sexism, but you know, in a real African sense, to be African is to be in a culture that's, you know, matrilineal, that like the lineage and the wisdom come from our mothers, our grandma, our mom. And when we came in contact with colonialism and white settler imperialism, they really shifted how the society in the world relates. And it became a white dominant patriarchal society. And that has made us dumb in so many ways.
right.
That has made us dumb in how we build institutions, how we build culture, how we build love, how we build community. And then when you think about me, you think about Holla, you think about my block, you think about my family. We internalize the war in so many ways through historical trauma, through the institutions, the structural violence, the intersectional structural violence of institutions that have been in our communities for generations. And then we internalize that in our personal relationships with each other, with our families, with our loved ones. And then, we internalize it in ourselves. We internalize hopelessness. Being black is not beautiful. Our families don't come from, and this is the trauma of the socialization of the war, the lies of the war, the social conditions of the war, that over the last 500 years to 5,000 years, for those of us who are born into this war, if you don't got an understanding of your family, of your history, of the story of the war, you might think this is your regular way of how to love.
Right.
You you
Right.
might think you might think that when people get shot on your block, when people are robbing and selling drugs in your neighborhood, when you seeing people from your neighborhood feed the prison system, you might think that's regular, that you a criminal, that people in your neighborhood, that your family are criminals, are drug addicts.
Right.
Might if you was born in the last 500 to 5,000 years, you might think black women are not God. You might
Hmm.
think black women didn't develop and build civilization with the support of the African family and then shared it to the world. You might actually think that the Greeks are the first thinkers, that Plato and Aristotle were the people that gave us our first thought. You might believe that Christianity and Islam and Judaism, that those religions are the oldest spiritual books. You might not know that 3,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 years before any of those religions were around, African people had books, have texts about spirituality that those books come from.
Right.
So there's so much ignorance from the trauma of the war that we could just, we can stop 4,000 years ago and talk about that period. We could talk about the last 10 years and talk about that
Right.
period. But the bigger story of the ignorance is that it's related to historical trauma,
Right.
that there's no that there's no that there's no class or course that could remove the historical ignorance, that we got to journey in our own family struggles, and build up our critical consciousness as family members, as organizers, so that we are collectively over time, through experiences, through organizing, through love, remembering who we were and who the world was, but also where we want to go and how we move out of the ignorance of trauma, and particularly historical trauma, and particularly a trauma being socialized in a white supremacist patriarchal society that disrespects African matriarchy.
Mm. Well said. Most definitely, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of time we a lot of us don't even know that we have traumas or we have ignorance that's passed down to us, you know. And when we look back and like you said, I remember in the documentary you said it's like a Velcro, it maps on you. And without even knowing that it's like another part of layers, a part of you that it's just connected to. And that is something that is deep, right? So like from what you just said, when you talk about ignorance, when you talk about us as Black African people, right? How do we engage in healing as Black men and Black women?
But I think everybody got their own journey and own process of healing.
Right,
I, some general things is that we all got different levels of consciousness and understanding, but education and consciousness is an infinite process. So regardless of where we at, one of the main things in healing is decolonization, which is an educational process, a restudying the process, a studying particularly of grassroots, indigenous, and African center worldviews, so that you could re-see the world that we live in and that
right,
the world we've been living. Because, like I said, there's been a lot of work in universities and across the country, even archaeological work. They made fake skeletons to try to say white people were here first. So
Right.
there's a lot of work to erase, who you are, and who you are is culture, is morals, is values. So if you acting like a white man, if you don't understand your own Belizean ancestral culture, your own Mississippian ancestral culture, your own Honduras ancestral culture, your own Haiti ancestral culture, and you're practicing a culture that's very new to you, um, that's one way that you could be in perpetuate and harming yourself, not even knowing it.
Right.
Secondly, I think healing is emotional and spiritual process,
Right.
and spiritual in the sense that it requires your ancestors. It requires that you engage with energies that's invisible and invisible.
Mm.
So we talk about the wisdom that come from your water. We talk about the wisdom and the teachings that come from minerals or stones. We
Mm.
talk about the wisdom that comes from fire and wind and air. And these are descriptions that come from our ancestors to really tell us and give us guidance, not only on how to heal, but how to be in the healing lifestyle, how to build community, how to build temples, how to build society that's centering thinking about every ounce of the cosmos.
Mm.
So
Talk
part of
about
healing,
it.
part of healing is really thinking about how do you relate to other spirits in the cosmos, and what's your understanding of your relationship to each and every energy in the cosmos. And that could be water, that could be a statue, that could be another friend, another family, and then figuring out, are you in balance with that, are you in harmony with that, and if not, because there's so many relationships that we are negotiating, not only within ourselves, but also within our homes, but also within the world, but also within the worlds. So yeah, man, so healing is really knowing you. That's why that education and decolonizing process is important, because sometimes we don't think about our relationship to other spirits,
Right.
our relationship to the cosmos, our relationship to the other animals, right? And
Right.
when we understand our relationship to these other spirits, these other interconnected energies of the universe, and we be authentic with them, we honor them, we be authentic with them, we get gifts.
Right.
And when we get gifts, those gifts are healings. That sometimes you might be kicking it with a brother or a sister or a mother, and you having a deep, vulnerable story, and they listening. And through that exchange of you being an authentic spirit and that other spirit being authentic, receiving that, building it with you. Sometimes people are like, yo, that's the first time I said it. You hear people say, this is the first time I ever got this out. You hear people say, like, yo, I'm glad you really listened to me. You hear people say, like, yo, we've been friends ever since that night we talked on that couch, and you remember we shared that moment. Many times people say these kind of statements is because of what I just said, that two spirits were authentic with each other, and through that process gifts come out that are invisible, that is part of the healing process, always part of the healing process.
Definitely. And I like the way, because you was talking about Cosmo, right? And and the way you broke it down was so phenomenal. It was good the way you broke it down. But like, for some people who do not know what Cosmo is, right? And how they get
Mhm.
connected to Cosmo, what are some tools or advice would you give them?
But the cosmos means the stars, the galaxies, the sun, the moon. You know, most of us in society, we focused on the material stuff, the stuff that's in our face, our clothes, the train station. But in African matriarchal society, 3 million years ago, when African people were building the world, part of how they built the world was by studying the heavens, studying the stars, studying the cosmos. That's how we able to know how there's 4 seasons in a year. The
Right.
reason why we know there's spring, summer, fall, and spring, summer, fall, spring, summer,
Winter and
winter,
autumn.
the reason why we know it's spring, summer, fall, and winter is because people long ago, particularly African people, were studying the stars, and they were
Right.
studying how the sun and the stars were moving, and they learned that at certain times of the year we got more light, we got more darkness, the ocean floods, and they started naming these different times that they were seeing the sun and the moon move to different things to help them understand when they could plant, when they could live, when they can't plant, when they need to get away from the Nile River because they might overflood them. And
Right.
alligators and everything might be on the land and that might be dangerous. So by studying, when the first people 3 million years ago, we learned how to build fire, learning how to journey, learn how to travel. That process was a study of cosmology and a study of ecology, their nature,
Mm.
so that they can be able to make civilization. So once again, when we think about African spirituality or the origins of human development, it's really centered to understand that African people study cosmology and ecology. That's how we got pyramids. That's how
Right.
we got fire. That's how we got medicine and all of the things that come from the temple walls of Egypt, or what we call Kemet. But Kemet in Egypt is our it's new wisdom in ancient Africa, because Kemet is about like 6,000 years old, and ancient Africa is 3 million years old. So by the time we get to Kemet and we writing on walls and we doing the meta nature or the hieroglyphs, we already expressing our understanding of the cosmology and the ecology, and that's how we built the pyramids. That's how we had one of the best civilizations that they said in human history that's recorded. But that
Right.
but that comes from a long practice. The same reason why we know our horoscopes. Yo, I'm a Taurus. Taurus means this. That's a science study of different cholesterol energies in the galaxies. And when you study
Mm-hmm.
those cholesterol energies, so that's a deep, complex study of math. That's a
Right.
deep, complex study of astronomy, astrology, psychology, ecology, and intersectionally, and even more, putting those things together to learn how to live and how to take care of yourself, but also how to treat the water with respect. You don't want to disrespect the Nile, because
Right.
the Nile is going to bring you a lot of food, even though it overflows at times. You don't want to disrespect the crocodiles and the alligators that come up out the Nile when they flow. So how do you be in harmony with ecology, and cosmology? And that comes from studying both of them together as a full understanding of divinity. And when I say divinity, meaning that the first people on the world were, African people, and that divine energy of listening to the cosmos and the ecology, the surroundings. That's really how we got to the story that we had today.
Mm. Wow. That is that is some powerful stuff right there, man. And because when I look at it, for me, when I look at it, I just like it's just like a breath of fresh air for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm still trying to get in tune with my cosmology too. You know what I'm saying? Still trying to get understanding with the stars, getting familiar with the water, still trying to get familiar with the land. So definitely, that's like give me a great like appreciation even more for how in tune you gotta be to love Earth, in a deeper way than traditional people don't tradition. Because I feel like what I learned, like, most of us are so like removed from ancestral teaching and practices that we're whenever we get in contact to it, we thought that is not us, but in reality, that is just a version of us that we shed trying to achieve a dream that is not even real. You know what I'm saying? And so with that being said, I want to ask you a question though, Corey. So how do we promote healing to our kids then? With you knowing all about the cosmology and you know about the water, the land, and all that, how do we bring those teachings and learnings and practices to our kids?
Yeah, I think a lot of ways. I think programs like Holla, which is a grassroots organization serving young people, mainly in New York City. Even though we're a national and international organization, our focus is on New York City, and particularly in the 7 neighborhoods in New York City that feeds over 75% of New York State prison system.
Right.
So I think programs like Holla and other programs from of the like are building educational and organizing communities to engage our young people. So I think getting young people in programs that are thinking about decolonizing, thinking about grassroots organizing, thinking about Black power, thinking about Black love is super important. I think
Right.
our family members, at home, because some of us live with our aunts, some live with our moms and fathers, some live with our grandmoms. So whoever's the guardian or guardians, the community of elders around the young people, it's important to talk to them about African history. It's
Hmm.
important for them to do their own study and their own decolonization so that they don't just pass on generational slavery to our children.
Right.
Because some of our parents, the way they teach, like go to school, get a job, be Christian, be Islam, none of those come with a deep African analysis and critique. And
Right.
if you just tell our family members to do these things in a racist, colonial, white America, um, that also has a lot of internal violence because we internalize white America. So yeah, other
Right.
Black people, other Black girls, other queer people are internalizing the war like you. So it for one, um, you know, it doesn't help our young people be able to face the reality of fighting the war or or blocking the war. For any lack of better words. And we got to heal. We are losing the war. The war. We've been
Right.
losing the war the last couple of years, so we need to build up our warriors, our warrior spirits. We need to build, and part of that warrior spirit is that deep love for Blackness, that deep love for culture, that deep love of the story of human history and what's missing from human history, as Dr. John Henry Clark always said, is African history,
Mm.
the pages of African history, the 3 million years, the ways that African people were the first people on Americas and Brazil and in California, how the first people in Africa was the first people in Europe, in Germany, in India, in China. So when you are thinking of yourself as a slave, as somebody who feeds the prison industrial complex, even if you don't know about slavery, even if you're just born now, you might just see all of us getting locked up on the street, and you look up in the prison system and you see that it's almost 2 million people there, and most of them are Black and brown. You might think like, damn, we wasn't the first people here. We were slaves. We didn't build pyramids. We wasn't the first people in Spain to build, in Europe to build all of the universities in Europe. We wasn't the first people in Chiapas, Mexico, and Guatemala, before the Mayans building temples and stuff. We might just think we are thugs, we are jump offs, we are deadbeat dads, we are people impacted by crack, and that's what you see in the 7 neighborhoods. That's what
Right.
the TV is telling us.
Talk
So
about it.
it's important for our family members at home and organizations outside the home like Holla, to develop alternative practices and worldviews to give to Black, brown, and indigenous babies.
Mm.
And I think there's never enough of aunties, family members, programs like Holla, because there's never enough, because they're always giving you Harvard. They're always giving you the Army. They're always giving you some sitcom, some reality TV show on TV that's giving you a psychology of who you are and are moving you. The shows are moving you, even from Walt Disney to Disneyland to Real Wives of Hip Hop. We are getting
Right.
moved in schools, in our families, on our blocks, and by media. So the fight for decolonization of how this socialization is moving our young people, moving our family, and has been moving us for years and for years is critical. When the Haiti Revolution took off and they won their independence, even with winning their independence, these crackers, these colonialists, um, the the Europeans said that you can't have your drums. You
Mm.
can't have your drums. So when we talk about education, you got to ask, like, why do all these colonists, when they snatch us from Africa, whether we going to Barbados, St. Thomas, whether we going to Guyana, whether we in Cuba, whether we in Venezuela, whether we in Honduras, they taking our drums.
Right.
So why they taking our drums? How do all of those drums from those different cultures relate to each other? How do they relate back to Africa? We just need to teach that alone. Why we don't got our drums, and why when we get our drums back, you know, we got to fight to get our drums back. And we did that through hip hop, but then they stole hip hop again.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of things to teach our family about healing, about decolonization. But I think, just talking about, fighting and what fight we in the war is one of the major things, because it's going to teach you how to love. It's going to teach you what to protect yourself. It's going to teach you how to teach other people, how to heal with other people who come from your nation, who come from your block, who come from your bloodline, who are also in the war, but who may not be aware to the awareness that you are at.
Right.
We need to teach our children that you are your ancestors, that you are your block, that you are the other black people in Minnesota, in California, in Brazil. You are Trayvon. You are, Sandra Bland. That you are those people, and that you got to understand all of you, and that
Mm-hmm.
you're not just your white picket fence and your house or your apartment, or it's not just about you and your family. It's not just about saving you and your daughter and your stuff, because that's not what being the first people of the world is about.
Mm.
It's about
Yep.
taking responsibility back of protecting the world, protecting the cosmos, protecting the water, protecting the other animals, but most importantly, protecting the sacredness of being chosen to help develop this part of the world.
Right. Right. Definitely. Definitely, because we are the true, the true patriots and ally to this world. You know what I mean? Like, even in the study shows that they found the DNA that the black woman hold the truth to all generations. You know
True
what I'm
to
saying?
all generations.
And learning that these things are evidently true, and to see how they are trying to emasculate and demasculate the man, the black man image, like, from really using the Bill Cosby situation to using these different pillars of, like, figures that we look up to in our black community as a token, as we thought as they're gods to us, right? And when you see that, how they just rip them into pieces, and this is what our generation looks like today, where there's not enough, like I always say, there's not enough scholars but more ballers, right? And once we get more educated people like Cory, we get more educated people like Arox and Alex and Mashley and Shaq and Phil and myself and everybody all in these different areas. When we get those young people in those communities to really make standing a change, the chance to make their voice to be heard, right? And that's something that Holla has really, brought to my attention when I was in Holla. So a lot of people don't know I was part of Holla at one point in my life too. Holla is and always will be home to me. And to learn what Cory is talking about, the Cosmo, like, to learn from where he was at to where he at now, that tradition still continues. That token of that love still continues. That token of that blackness still continues. The
Mm-hmm.
token of appreciation still continues. So when we talk about generationally loving our generation of kids and give them the teaching that is passed down, not the one that is filtered with sugar and gluten and treated with hate and fear and rejection and stigma and all these. No, the ones that actually give you the love, the one that actually give you the validation, the one that actually see you, the ones that actually loves you, that's when it cares about you. Those are the teaching that we gotta teach our kids. Those are the things that we gotta understand, that trauma plays a big part in our black community, that really downgrade the black community, that we emasculate the man, emasculate the woman, emasculate the children. And when you start peeling back the layers and you start understanding that these traumas are just traumas that they are put on us, not because they put on us, but also the ones that we put on ourselves too. And when we remove those toxins, and when we remove those traumas, and when we remove those things, then we can see that black community has a lot more to offer than what we think we have, because of the mid image of what Cory said, the TVs, the radios, the music, and even the shows that we watch. So Definitely, Corey. I really appreciate you for that conversation because you inshallah so much that you know there's a lot you said that I wanted to say, but you said it perfectly, right? And I also want to ask you one last thing before we head out to the next few questions I got left for you. What is one specific advice you want to give the young generation? I'm talking the ones between 23 and 30-year old. What you want to tell them right now?
That yeah, it's kind of cliche, but I'm going past the cliche part. So the cliche part is kind of like um anything you want to be, you could be. But going past it is like you got to figure out your resurrection, your transformation to practice that a lot. So
Right,
if you want to be a basketball player, you got to practice. You got to study. If you want to be a football player, you got to study. If you want to, and as African people, part of your moral and spiritual thing, like anything that you do, you got to do with your heart, with all your heart. Even if you're gonna be a waiter or you're gonna be a cooker, you gotta like, yo, I'm gonna be the best cooker. I'm gonna put my
right,
ancestors. I'm gonna go learn what my grandma did, what my mom's did, what her grandmas did, what
right,
what black people grandmas did in Honduras, how they cook. How like you wanna like you wanna go to same. Everything is about you in the cosmos and all the deep ways. Whatever you decide you do, you could do it, but you can't do it by just dreaming in like this white supremacist dream. Like I go to sleep and I think about it.
right,
You gotta do that. You gotta give it to your friends, your mom, like, yo, this is what I'm gonna do. But then you gotta put that work in. You gotta go to the basketball court and run those sprints. You gotta shoot
yep,
those 500 jumpers. You gotta do
hmm,
layups with your right hand and your left hand. You got if you singing, you gotta practice your bars. You gotta make it. You gotta complicate your bars. You gotta like talk about other stories. You gotta study. So whatever you do, you gotta put that passion and that spirit in it. That is you, but is you in a long way.
mm,
And 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 you got to put your heart to it. You got to put your heart to it. And whenever any black person, any indigenous person be honest and be authentic and give themselves to something, you get gifts in return. Shout out to Baba Mfudishi, because Baba
mm,
Mfudishi always talk about how when different energies and cosmos be authentic with each other, that you get gifts from the cosmos. And some of those
mm,
gifts be teachings. Like me, I got a PhD. I had a fortune enough to meet you and so many other people, but
right,
because I was able to be in a process that allowed me to meet other cosmos, to be authentic with other cosmos, that I was able to get some gifts out of it, that we was able to get some gifts out of it. and
right,
and you also learn, because you learn sometimes, you know your authentic self um is not in balance with somebody else's authentic self. So it's not just about being truthful and being authentic, because authentic is just saying speaking truth to whatever. But sometimes your truth got to come with wisdom in it.
right,
You got to be authentic, you know. But that might means if you being authentic without wisdom, without decolonization in it, you might create more harm to your
right,
cosmology, to the plant. So it's not
right,
just about being authentic, it's about knowing your relationship to the thing you being authentic to, so that you can do that in a good way. And that's why it
right,
takes study. It ain't just about playing basketball. It ain't just about dribbling. It ain't just about writing raps. It ain't just about being a parent. It's about being a parent and learning from your mistakes, learning
right,
from how you've been authentic, and how that authenticness with the thing you was trying to be authentic with didn't give you the best balance. So you can't be mad at yourself from being authentic, but you can say maybe the wisdom that I brought to that authenticness, or who I was with that authenticness, or how I said my authenticness, or what I didn't say in my authenticness, is probably why that that chemistry didn't work. And then the last thing I say is that we as black people live in a lot of hopelessness. We live in a lot of struggle. We doing a lot. We internalizing a lot of emotions.
mm,
So it feels like work to dream. It feels like work to study. It feels like work to chase your dreams, to chase what you want to be. And you got to fight that, because we all feel like it ain't about some people like Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Michael Jackson. It ain't like these people didn't feel those emotional things. It's just that some of us understand that we all feel the stress of generational war and anxieties in our real lives. But the spirit thing, as a black person, as a young black person, is you must continue the journey. You
Mm.
must continue the journey.
You
You
must
must follow
continue
your
the
dreams.
journey.
You
Right.
must follow your dreams. You must follow who you are. You must figure out how to take time yourself, and how, even if you're going through domestic violence, going all of that, you must find time to talk to yourself, to tell yourself I love you, to tell yourself you're gonna be who you're gonna be. You must find yourself to be with people that's gonna remind you you're gonna be who you need to be. You must even, and this could be a year, this could be one day, this could be 10 years. Because I've been in clouds for years where I couldn't see my journey, because
Mm.
the clouds of the war, the clouds of interpersonal violence, the clouds of internalized trauma, it blocks your resurrection process. But what I learned through the process is you must continue your journey, even with those. When the forest look cloudy, or the dirt road is no longer clear. Now it's woolly with grass, and it's vines all over the place. If you keep jogging, if you keep moving along, the path comes back. The path
Mm.
comes back. So
Mm.
that's what it is. That's what it's about. It's about, don't give up on black people. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your family, and know that the path you made already. So it's coming back to you.
Mm. Y'all hear it here first. Y'all hear what he said. Love on yourself. And I say it again for everybody who is listening. Love on yourself. And you will get the gifts from your ancestors if you get to give your ancestors the gifts. You hear it here first, y'all. On the block with Rasta, y'all hear it from Dr. Greene. Man, he came here and he didn't play. He dropped all these tools, man. So Cory Greene, there's two more questions, but like before you go, what is one book you would recommend to my audience to read if they want to again tap into reading?
Yeah, it's so many books, man. But I think Asada Shakur,
Mm, yes.
and I say Asada Shakur because I always carry Asada Shakur with me every day, and I just symbolically, but also dead seriously too. But many Christian people always carry a Bible with them all the time.
Right.
So I always carry the Asada Shakur book because I think it represents, like, a testament to Black liberation.
Right.
And I think Asada, and which she was a part of, the Black Panther Party, the Black
Right.
Liberation Army,
Mm-hmm.
and just being a young black girl from just in a black neighborhood, she represents in a lot of ways, the emblem and process of
Mm.
consciousness of journeying towards black liberation. And she's still alive. She's still in exile in Cuba. She's an elder. When we talk about ancestor wisdom, is directly connected to, like, new spirits, new babies,
Mm.
and and older spirits that's soon to go into the ancestor realm. So she's an elder, and she's really close to the ancestor realm. Um, and she's exiled, so we need to get her back. We need to take care of her. We need more people to be thinking about, and family members, not just young people, but family members, to be saying, why are our soldiers who fought against the war, the
Right.
people who fought for black liberation, armed for black liberation, who took on this big system, why are they locked up for 30, 40, 50 years? And why are we not trying to get our soldiers free?
Mm.
So I think Asada helps reminding young people that you are a soldier, and anytime you are black, brown, and indigenous, and your babies are getting killed, and you being in slavery, and you living in social policies and social structures that deport you, that incarcerate you, and etc. There's always going to be young people and mothers and family that's going to say, we got to win, we got to fight, and we are still in that context. So she reminds us that, like, you ain't special. you ain't crazy. Like when you are in this context, that's who you got to be. That's who you need to be.
Right.
And she also remind us that we win. That we
Hmm.
win.
Definitely.
When we fight, we win.
And that's deep, you know. That's very deep because I read Nostalgia Core book too, and she is the in my book she is the not I will say she is symbolic for black women and strong black women who are radical, but also yet who are the forefront into the fight that we need to fight against the white supremacy. And that book is amazing, y'all. So definitely check it out. It's worth the needs. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you so much for coming on the block with Rasta. I appreciate you dropping all the jewels. Where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, check out Holla website, and that's Hill HEAL with WITH Holla HOLLA.com. You can follow us on Instagram at How Our Lives Link All Together with underscores in between each word. You can
Hmm.
find us on Twitter at Holla underscore us. And you could email us at coach.holla at gmail.com. And on YouTube, if you go on YouTube and you type in Holla TV, shout out to Keyron and Rasta, Rasta Ron for helping us, move that program a little bit further along. We still developing that program. We got a lot of stuff coming out with that program
Right.
um, this year. Actually, a lot of
Mm.
stuff coming with Holla TV. But Holla TV is our political education media literacy platform to really engage in non-traditional teaching and training and community news reporting.
Hmm.
And we already got a documentary on our Holla TV, and we got our album, The Report Back, on Holla TV,
Yeah.
and we got over 100 videos with us performing, us doing circles, us doing keynotes, us in our own internal political education sessions. So if you go to Holla TV, you can scroll through a lot of different types of videos and see more of our work too.
Definitely. Thank you. Definitely. Yeah, definitely check that report back. Check the report back, y'all. It's fire. Make sure y'all heard. Make sure you follow Holla on Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you email them at coach.holla at gmail.com. And you know what if you know your host, I'm Rasta. Thank you for joining us on the block with Rasta. If you're on Spotify, make sure you hit me with that follow. Thank you so much. Thank you, Corey Greene. Peace and bless and have a great day.
Peace,
Definitely
Black Power,
Black
resurrection,
power. Power to the people.
free the land.